when I'll stop. I'll forget. Good morning, everybody. I'm Nancy Vandale, chairperson of the NCAC Bylaws Subcommittee, and we're convening the meeting at 11:04. And I have no conflicts. I'm going to ask the committee members to introduce themselves and declare there any conflicts.
Wyatt Angelo, no conflicts.
Tom Sipe, no conflicts.
Susan Schomburg, no conflicts.
Great, thank you. And we're expecting Michael Beachley to be coming here in a few minutes. So I'd like to just go over the agenda quickly. We don't have any guests or anything. I'm just gonna go ahead and not share it particularly, but well, let me share. I'll be sharing a bunch of other things too. So as you see, I have added a number of things to the agenda. So our calendar is getting quite large. Never had anything quite like this before, but we'll go into approval of minutes if you guys have had a chance to review them. Chairperson's report. I doubt Mark is coming because he's on his trip, but it's possible he might dial in, or Alex, the clerk, the vice chair, may come in. And then we'll just mainly spend our time on the policies and procedures, review and update and plan for feedback session 2. And then go into the summary. And if we get any people, have some public comment. And that's it. So can everybody stay till 1:30 if we need to? Okay,
Yep.
Great. Hopefully we won't. But as I was putting this together, I'm thinking, I think we're going to need to. So going over the calendar, we have so many things. I put the feedback sessions in green. And we're starting off slowly, which is great as we're continuing to update the document. And then I wanted to briefly mention we've got the special executive board meeting on April 26th, a regular executive board meeting on April 23rd. Oh, excuse me. I did not put the additional special executive board meeting, which was just called for this coming Tuesday. So that's another special executive board meeting that actually came in after the agenda was published. So I'll discuss that a little bit. The special executive board meeting on Saturday, April 26th should probably also be in green because it's really a PP&Rs discussion with the executive board, giving them an opportunity to particularly go through things that pertain to them, like their job descriptions. And pretty much all of this. So I'm going to stop the agenda. Did people have a chance to look at the minutes? So we have the minutes that were produced for the 3/7 meeting that came in just before the last meeting, and we held off on those. But we've had those for a week. And then I went ahead and stuck in the minutes from 3/21 that I took for the meeting that wasn't a quorum. It was an information only meeting. So it's doesn't have to be approved, but it has interesting stuff. So, and then because we had Sarah Absher and Mark at the meeting, so we got a lot of things answered. I'm just gonna show that one. Just it's got timestamps and kind of just a description of things we learned talking to Sarah about these different areas. So Susan and I were there for that meeting. And then last night, we were able to send out the minutes from last week's meeting. It's quite short, so I don't know if you guys had a chance to review that because that went out
I
last
did.
night. Does anyone want to take the time to just look at them right now? Or
Yeah,
do you want
briefly,
to?
Nancy.
Okay.
But moving it now, look at it.
Okay, sorry. I tried to make sure I had the right date up there.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, so am I.
As well.
Okay, thank you. So if since everybody's fine with it, the minutes are approved as presented for the April 4th meeting. Now, the 3/7 meeting was longer and more detailed. So do you want to go through it here, or did you have a chance to look at it ahead of time?
I looked at it ahead of time.
It looks fine to me, Nancy.
Okay,
No
Tom?
objection.
Okay, so hearing no objections, the minutes for the March 7th meeting are approved as presented. By the way, before these are sent out, I go through them quite thoroughly. Okay, I appreciate appreciate Michael's work on all that. He's having to do extra duty as we all are. Okay, so my report, let's stop sharing. So feedback session number 1 was interesting. We had two guests. I don't know if everybody attended the science seminar that we were told that was happening, or if it's just an indication that people aren't as interested in this. I'm taking it to mean we've built trust over the last year, and people think we're doing a good job, or they just, I don't know. So at the membership meeting on Saturday, I'm thinking about actually having a poll and asking people, how interested are you in, the wording is going to have to be pretty carefully written, but do you care about these feedback sessions? I'm going back and forth, so I'm really curious what you all think. I mean, there are going to be a few people who come and we're going to hear this stuff, so it might go a little faster because there might not be quite as much discussion, but the few people who do come are going to want to hear it fully. So I don't really think we need to compress it so much, but it'd be, I didn't ask because there were only 2 people how the pace was. Since our first one was an overview, it was kind of hard to change the pace, but some of these I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on in future feedback sessions. But as we talk about organizing feedback session number 2 later in the agenda, I think we're just going to have to play it by ear probably on Wednesday on how much people want to hear. And there are obviously going to be certain policies and certain procedures people are going to care about more than others. But I'm kind of hoping we can have feedback sessions 2 through 4, not including the executive board one, and then kind of cancel the others, make any changes we have, and then come back with an overview more, in the date for feedback session 7 or 8 as kind of a right before the meeting where we adopt. But I'm just sort of thinking out loud. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a very reasonable question to ask the membership. Do you want detailed, well, you want more, do you want presentations on each of these before you consider it as a whole? Or are you willing to just consider it and go with, bring up any problems you have at the time? I said that
Mhm.
really poorly.
No,
No, I
Anyway,
get what.
I hear what you're saying too, and it made me think, Nancy, are you thinking of asking this at the upcoming meeting on Saturday, the general membership meeting? Where there
Yeah,
will
I'm
be more
kind of.
people in attendance, hopefully?
Exactly. I'm part of it is going to be to promote it. I thought it would be
Mhm.
good to have a presentation where we just show them the document, the initial structure of it, kind of like we briefly went through, and Tom can talk about the differences between policies and procedures and references, and we just show them the topics very, very briefly. We don't have a lot of time on the agenda. And just say, we have this, we're having these feedback sessions. They take some time. But we know you're being inundated with meetings plus things outside of FCAC. You have lives. But I don't even know how many people are going to come to the membership meeting. But
Yeah.
yeah,
there was a notice that went out yesterday
I,
announcing Mark, thank God.
Oh,
But it didn't even mention
so
the
elated.
membership. It didn't mention the membership meeting. So it's like,
who knows?
A thought
Anyway,
comes to mind too, if people can't, come to the feedback session, do we is there some way we can say, hey, email the bylaws committee with,
Mhm.
if you see anything in the PPNR that you would have a
Yeah.
question about or something, so they have a different way of giving feedback if they can't dial in?
Yeah, that's a great idea that
I'd
we
like
can
I'd like to
do
make a
that.
suggestion for the agenda for the feedback sessions, that we change it
Mhm.
from being some particular set to, are there any that you are concerned about, and be able to
Mm.
get the most important things done, and people won't have to sit through things that they're really not concerned about.
Well, that's an interesting thought, Tom. We could invite them to send us an email ahead of time so that we can at least do some planning.
Yeah, but I think we could probably speak to any of them off the
Yeah.
cuff. But I think your idea about the, queuing them up beforehand would be good.
Yeah, the only thing is that if we do it on the fly, then there might be people who are interested in certain ones and they'll come to those ones. If we can,
Mm.
if we can lay out a plan on when we're going to talk about which ones, they can decide if they want to come to that feedback session.
Yeah.
But they could even tell us at a feedback session, I'd really like to hear more about this one. And we tell them, okay, well, definitely can, cover it in, yeah, yeah, let's, oh, that's a good thought. Huh?
And I
Up
wonder
and
if people are not having the time to commit to a 2-hour feedback session, there were some way that we could flesh it out. It's like, okay, policy 9 will be discussed between,
Mhm.
for 15.
Actually have an agenda. Yeah.
I don't know. That
Yeah.
may be micromanaging it to a level we can't look in the crystal ball and do that. But if someone only had 15 minutes and we're only concerned about one thing, and again, they could email.
But that is, I mean, I do think we could set an agenda with the times saying that they'll slip depending on how much discussion we have. But yeah, we could do that. We could certainly do that. Some of them as I have a document that I just did this morning, so that kind of shows what our statuses are, and I took a lot of that from Tom's R19 document. But we're obviously not going to be prepared to talk about ones that we're not completely finished with. But we should be finished with most of them before feedback session number 3, because that's not until the end of the month. So we should be okay. But yeah, those are good thoughts. Because I mean, we were able to keep the last one to 1 hour and 20 minutes, and we started late because there were so few people.
Yeah,
I don't like to start late.
I think to feeding into your analysis, Nancy, is the fact that the people who attended the feedback session didn't seem to be particularly interested in one section or another, and didn't have any comments about any of the bylaws per se, or the P and Ps per se. So I wonder how many people are very concerned about it, and trying to find out and limit the amount of time for feedback sessions, et cetera, would be really, I think, helpful to us in managing our time.
It would, and maybe what we do is we have something where we ask them to email if there's anything in particular that they're
Yeah,
interested in, or whether they're interested at all. I mean, and what I don't want to do is get into the meeting on May 31st and have people suddenly come and then go, oh my God, I want to discuss every little thing. And suddenly,
Yeah.
we don't have time. So, but if they have a chance to read the ever evolving document, I mean, that's the other issue, is the document evolves.
Can you do a straw poll at the
Mhm.
meeting on Saturday to
Yeah, that's
gauge
what I'm
interest?
thinking, is that I'll do a straw poll and I'll send you guys out the questions I'm thinking, and you guys please feel free to edit, and we'll see what we can do. I actually had a poll written for this meeting I was ready to send it out, but for 2 people, I figured we didn't need to do that. So welcome, Michael.
Hi, sorry to be late. I had to take my wife to a follow-up. She had cataract surgery yesterday,
Ah,
and that's always, a bit of a problem. And so she had to go in and check it out today.
well, I hope everything went well.
Actually, this was the second one. She did the right one 2.5 weeks ago, and now she's trying to adjust and see the world again.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, your minutes have been approved,
Oh, good. Okay.
so we are good. So thank you. We're just talking about feedback session number 1 and plans for the membership meeting where we're going to try to gauge interest on how much people care about this and do they want to come on to different feedback sessions. So, and I think if we have just a few people, we can kind of check along the way and ask them if they're, how much interest there is. But when we were asking the other night, I mean, nobody ever had a comment except the one about Oregon public meeting law. And I think I will follow up with Lori on that, but that's sometimes a training issue too. So I do want to mention this special executive board meeting that's been called for next Tuesday. Mark got a request to Tillamook County to have one of the county commissioners come in and talk about the transient logic tax that's on the ballot for May. I think it's May 20th. And they wanted to come in at tomorrow's meeting and talk about it. And so Mark brought up our procedures and said, we need to be able to decide that as an executive board. And we've already announced the agenda and blah, blah, blah. That's not going to work. And got some pretty strong pushback on that, but he was resolute and we but agreed to set up this special board meeting about it. And so the executive board is going to talk about whether and how to bring someone in. So I'm thinking we will probably do it, and we would probably set it up for 2 weeks after the executive board meeting. That's not for sure, but have a special membership meeting. It doesn't qualify for urgent, but with 2 weeks notice, we could have a special membership meeting to bring in both sides, because our procedures are, even though they're not approved yet, they are to bring in both sides. So Susan actually sent me something showing the representation on the opposite side. Interestingly, Tillamook County doesn't produce a ballot pamphlet, so there's no an election pamphlet voter's guide. So there's nothing showing the approved opponents, but we would give equal time to both sides, and then opportunity for questions. So it's yet another meeting, and maybe that's something tomorrow that Mark could actually ask would people be interested in having a meeting to talk about the transient lodging tax? Actually, I'll send a note to him about that. That might be
I'll bet there'll
a
be
good thing.
interest.
Yeah, okay. And it brings up, of course, the SDR stuff again. So,
Yeah.
So I think what it occurred to me is that, and I was planning to do this after this year, but to actually put in some really specific policies about, or not policies, procedures on how you run a forum like that. And because we didn't go into that kind of detail on the existing procedures. We talked about things you have to consider and do, but not actually how you run one. So I don't know if we want to bring in the local League of Women Voters, if there is an active League of Women Voters group to facilitate, or we bring some neutral party in to do it. Like I've run them before, so I don't know. But anyway, that's coming up. And then we have our executive board meeting on April 23rd. That's kind of a normal agenda, but the big thing for Saturday is the election. And I think you all saw the emails, and Mark has decided to rejoin. He said that apparently one of his hesitancies was that they were thinking of selling their property, and now they've decided not to. So, so now that nobody else has come forward, he was really hoping someone else would come forward, but no, he's decided he can, which was a huge surprise. So, and then I haven't heard of anyone for secretary. I don't know what's going to happen there. But I think once people understand there's a chair, there may be someone who's more, who will step up to be secretary, hopefully.
It's a dance.
So, yeah. So that's all I have for my chairperson's report. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to just talk about before we leap into the policies and procedures?
I missed your comments on the feedback session and what you thought about that. With 3 people there, I was
Yeah, and
surprised. I thought there was going to be, 8 or 10 people there.
yeah, there were 5 people that ended up getting registered after Candace very nicely sent out I sent her a note. We have 1 person registered. Is there any possibility of sending out a reminder note? She did immediately, which is awfully nice. But 5 people then registered that were not part of the subcommittee, and 3 showed up, and then 1 dropped out pretty quickly. So we had, I don't know.
Yeah, it looked
I don't
like
know if
that
we were
person
boring
was
him.
on a phone rather than, a computer. And I grabbed my NCA directory and they weren't listed. I didn't know who they were. And they
I know
didn't
who they are.
identify them. Oh, you do? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they were on video. They just had their video off. Yeah. So I didn't know their first name at the time. They just
Yeah.
had their first initial, but I found them.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we did have 2. They were both very positive about this at the end. And they, noted that they wished more people had come. That's really interesting stuff. But I think what I said, Michael, and I'm just going to be very brief because we need to move on, is that we're taking it kind of we've built trust with the bylaws and people feel like we're probably doing a good job. And this is maybe not quite as important as the bylaws, I'm guessing, but we'll find out tomorrow. We want to kind of get some input from the membership tomorrow on how they're feeling about these feedback sessions.
One
Plus,
thing
there's so much else going on with community plan.
there is. I think it would be very important to mention that the bylaws cannot be countermanded by the PNP.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That will, I think, help a lot of people have more comfort.
Yeah.
Not that I don't want them to show up, but
right. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that I do want to make clear too that we will have a few bylaws changes, amendments, but they'll be fairly minor at the same meeting. But I do want to give them that heads up.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's it. So for the policies and procedures, I did a document called status that none of you have seen because I just did it. But I just kind of wanted to do a summary of kind of what's still needed. And one of the things is that I want to have an actual bylaws amendments list that we're tracking. So the ones I know of now are policy 6 and policy 7 that we have notes on. Policy 6 is very, very brief. It's just making a really quick change of adding executive board to the responsibility for calling an urgent meeting as opposed to just the chair. And then policy 7 has one that we're going to talk about today on removal from position. Tom's already planning to reorder the document. So, and then create a related, and I think Tom's also planning to do number 3. Can you guys read this or is it too small?
That's better.
Related policies, procedures, and references list with relationships noted in each section. Because you saw me I had a list, but trying to scroll between the different sections and find them easily was a little hard in the feedback session. So, but that's something we can do later. But just know that the policy number or procedure number may not be linked to the title much longer. So I'm seeing standard policies 1 through 4 as complete. Policy 7, we're going to talk 5, we're going to talk about today, surveys and straw polls. Michael and I sent out a couple of days ago, I think. And then urgent meetings we're fine except for the bylaw change note. I think otherwise it's ready to say complete. So I think if we can just move that to a bylaws change list, we could probably complete that today. We'll go through Community engagement seems to be complete. Public statement seems to be complete. Outreach communications. This has come up that, we have a monitoring task force section, and outreach for some reason that came in as communications. I think it's just one of these evolution things, but Susan and I are suggesting that we change that to outreach task force, and include what's in there about communications, but add in the part of the outreach task force that involves what you do, that they're responsible also for seeking, and we have to word it very, very carefully. They're not vetting, but seeking people to be officers and committees or task force members. And then under procedures, something similar where we have to have some more procedures on how we, how people can apply. We don't really have anything on that. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, we got a lot of stuff to do, but we've done more. So we're more than half done.
Right. So, does anyone have an objection to our kind of expanding,
No.
making it
Oh,
not just
that,
communication?
no,
Mhm.
no problem.
Okay. And then honor system and voting. We have a voting section that we put in procedures. We have honor system and voting in policy, and I'm wondering if we should expand that to include other aspects of voting. And I haven't put enough thought into it, but it might be that having honor system and voting is enough by itself. But it's just something I'm kind of mulling on, whether it would be good to have a separate voting policy or just have voting and then have honor system as a subsection within it.
Nancy, what other aspects of voting are you thinking about?
So like it may be mainly procedure, but like giving the statement at the beginning about membership. Well, about membership, I guess we have that under honor system. I guess I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm still doing some research on finding an app that will serve our needs. And our needs, in my mind, include identifying multiple people on a screen, names, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then have a formal record of that. There are a bunch of them out there, and I'm trying to find one that doesn't cost but still does what we need to have it do. And there are a few of them out there, and so I'm still working on that. And when that's done, I think that probably needs to be plugged in there.
Right, and we have that under voting, but I think part of this, why it actually is starting to come back to me now that Michael's talking, is that when Michael and I started doing surveys and straw polls, we included voting in there. And then we're thinking, well, because some of the mechanisms are similar, but then we thought, voting is really separate than polling. And
Yeah.
so we were going to pull out some of the stuff we'd written for that and put it into voting, which is more how you, but those are motions. So we don't want to get into actual parliamentary procedure in there, but we may not need to add anything into the
Not
policy
yet,
section.
anyway. Yeah.
So maybe this could just be fine. So let me just say probably fine. I'm doing the live document, so I shouldn't be doing that. So I can't save it right now. Anyway, let me bring up, share the actual live document. Nope, that's not the live one. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I'll put it in the minutes if you want.
That's Chrome. There it is. Word. Okay. So maybe. Okay. Member registration and privacy. I'm suggesting we move policy from private, instead of saying member registration and privacy policy, that we just call it member registration and privacy, because policy is kind of, all of them are policies.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. It was-
Yeah, it seems
no-
redundant.
Yes, nothing should say what it is.
Okay.
Categorized as.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parliamentarian seems complete. Grant applications seems complete.
Well,
Monitoring task force.
There was that thing I sent this morning. You said part of the.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I've got that.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about that. That's great. I added it actually to the folder.
Okay, good.
So grant applications are complete. The monitoring task force is complete. Updates to references. I'm wondering, the updates to references includes, go to it on the, includes a last sentence about needing to review it annually. And I'm wondering, I understand why it's in there, because there are some things that are more changeable than others. But really, the bylaws subcommittee should be reviewing the bylaws, policies and procedures, and the references annually. So I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
guys
but if
think?
we don't write it down,
We may not do it.
yeah.
That too much is probably better than too little.
Yeah.
So I can just say complete.
Yeah.
Okay, use of name of title is complete. Information only meetings we're going to talk about today. Training of executive board new. We'll be discussing at the next meeting. Still being, I'm writing it. Convening of subcommittees and task forces. So Michael sent something this morning that he was intending, I think, it was an action item for him from procedure 11 or 8 on organization of subcommittees and task forces. But I'd like to discuss today, as we go into things in more detail, that I really like what you wrote, Michael. I think it could be a policy on convening
Sure,
of subcommittees and task forces, and then the procedure part of it's still down there in procedure 8. So just a note, we don't need to decide now, but I'm thinking as we go through it, we can, something to think about. And then procedures, I think honor system is complete. OPML, occurred to me as we were doing the feedback session and going through this, that I think the procedure should probably include more about what people can and cannot do, very, very briefly. Like, no two people, more than two people in a subcommittee or grouping can talk among themselves without it being public, and just some very brief, basic things that I know were just shocking to me when we first were part of the bylaws subcommittee, and what you can and cannot do. And I think that could be done pretty briefly, but at least give new people a little more information that's in there that otherwise they wouldn't know, without them having to go to OPML and learn themselves. What do you guys think?
I think that's reasonable, especially the feedback that we got at our feedback session about emails, and how I think it's important to mention that, because it seems like it initially can be a hardship for people not familiar with Oregon public meeting law.
And being able to talk with more than two people. So does that sound okay?
Well, I think they should suffer as much as we did.
Yeah, well, they should suffer, but
Yeah.
it's, I think it should be specified how they suffer. So
Okay, fair enough.
um,
I'll add that note to the document.
okay. Minutes are complete. There's a slight typo that you might have already caught, Tom, but as I was going through it again, I noticed I'm still in R19, so you may have already caught it in R20.
Actually, you're 10 off. We're talking about 29 and 30.
Yes, I am. Sorry. I'm on 29. God. Yes. And 30. Yes. Yes. So
Bylaws changes typo. Okay, I'll check that.
it's you're signing through when I Just going through it again. Good.
Oh, that's procedure 4.
Procedure 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's one I mentioned in the meeting, but just need to.
It also shouldn't be as indented as it is, much as it is.
Oh, there's an extra in the second sentence. There's an I before the bylaws. At the
Oh,
beginning of the
that's fine.
sentence.
Did
Okay.
that.
Okay, great. I will update that.
There wasn't enough in R30 to warrant a new one. I mean, there's only, that's one of 2 changes, I think.
Oh, I'm back in the wrong document. Okay. Still writing voting. As I said, Michael and I had already written some of this, but we'll bring that back next time. Why is that sitting out there? What's that doing, Tom? What do you mean keep source formatting? Reports to outside agencies seems to be complete. Removal from position we're going to talk about today. Organization of subcommittees and task forces we're going to talk about today. And there may be a possible new policy 19 that we just mentioned. Monitoring task force we're talking about today. I think that's largely complete. I think there were just a couple of notes that Susan and I need to follow up on what do we do with some of these things. Survey guidelines we're going to talk about today, and CAC archives still need to write and talk about. That's Wyatt and me. Talk about next week. Notices are complete. Conflict of interest. Should it be conflicts of interest? Is it a conflict of
Yes.
interest?
Yeah, I just changed it.
Okay. Request to the NCAC. I think it's largely complete, except you don't like the formatting. Would that be right, Tom? Or is there actually
Yeah,
substantive
I
stuff
have
in
no
there?
content disagreement. I do
Okay.
have format disagreement.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So I will update that. That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. So complete, content complete. Reformat.
I
Okay.
did a similar reformat to the county's inputs on middle housing. They went 7 layers deep.
Okay. I'm not quite that bad then with
Oh,
5.
my word.
Yeah,
And were they okay with that, Tom?
they haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure the committee will be fine. Sarah, I don't know.
Okay. And then setting meeting times and mode is, I thought it was complete, but it didn't show a check mark. So I said, discuss today. And then EB, executive board emails, I'm still writing. So, and then references, I just put discuss on April 18th. Most of them, I think we've discussed. The job descriptions, I'm still in the process of writing. And I really want to discuss with the executive board at their meeting on the 26th. So hopefully I'll have a lot of those done by the 18th to talk about at our next meeting. Okay, so how does this look? Is this helpful to see as kind of a summary? Sort of.
Yep.
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 Looks like we've got
Okay.
more done than we realized. So that's great.
I think we've gotten a lot done. I think there may be wholesale policies or procedures we haven't written yet, but we have next year too. This isn't, this document when it goes on May 31st doesn't have to be completely finished. It can be a good start. And I would say more than a good start. I think it's really pretty amazing. Okay, so I'd like to then go to the actual policies and procedures that we've got here and go through the ones that we have for discussion on the 11th, and then go back to this at the end to talk about our feedback session and kind of keep in mind as we're going which ones you might like to talk about on Wednesday that makes sense. So the other thing I want to pull up is the agenda from last time in terms of the reorganization. Um, Screen sharing was something that I'm not seeing. So, oh, I'm sharing. Are you seeing something? Seeing an agenda and roles? There it is.
Mhm.
I have too much open.
I've got
Okay.
Rand calling me. I'm gonna be
Oh,
away
okay.
just a second.
So this is, I think you guys all saw this for the feedback session, correct?
Mhm.
So what I did was kind of try to go through and organize things that kind of fit together to have them presented together. And I probably should have had a third column for references, but there weren't that many reference things. Did that seem to work other than the mad scrolling back and forth? Because I'm thinking for feedback session 2, when we get there, we can kind of look at this kind of an organizational structure and pick the ones that we think are going to fit. I mean, alternatively is after this meeting, we don't have to do it in the meeting. I can go through and send a draft to each of you to look at with this kind of a combination, and I will have added in what we've actually completed and put up a proposal for what we cover on Wednesday. But kind of think about that as we go through the discussion of the document. Does that sound okay? You guys okay?
Yep.
Yeah,
I know.
I think it's fine. So two things I wonder about, and the first one is the number of sessions that we have scheduled. Are we going to need them? And the second one is that it might be helpful to the people who are registering to limit to a few things rather than the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
We are.
Okay, and that because as my feeling the other day was that there was probably a point where they just kind of zoned out a little bit and then zoned back in and so on, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The purpose of the first one was to do just a brief overview
Yeah,
and
yeah.
introduce the document, show them the kinds of things that are in it very, very briefly, which is why I cut people off a little bit. We had such little time, but for the next ones, you weren't here for the first part. I'm hoping we can do it in 3 more sessions.
Okay, yeah.
We kind of split it into 3 parts, and I think we agreed at the last meeting that we would discuss the policies and any related procedures and references with that policy, but spend more time as necessary. Now, some aren't going to take that much time, and we've already covered standards and values. I'm not going to go back to it, but like access to records should be pretty quick. And a lot of these should be really quick, and then spend more time on the others. We might not even need 3. I don't know, but probably, and probably shorter is better than 2 hours of it if we don't have to do the 2 hours. So I don't, as I go through, I don't really think there's that much that's controversial. Voting might be a little bit. I think it's just really, we'll see what they think tomorrow with the membership meeting, but
You know,
uh,
I really regard this whole document as in terms of Robert's rules as standing rules.
right, they're exactly
And
that.
yeah, and it might help to recognize that standing rules can be changed at any time if there's advance notice.
Hmm.
If there's no advance notice, like it pops up during one of our general meetings, it can still be changed, but it requires a 2/3 vote.
Right.
And so, the whole point is it gives them a little bit more cachet than just these are agreements by which we're going to operate. Now they're there and they are how things ought to be done. but they can be changed at any time.
To a point. Now we're a little more limited because we're under the county, and so the county legal people have to approve. But I think once, these important things, hopefully he's not gonna care that much.
Yeah.
And we've already gone through a lot of this with Sarah, and we've already put in things that she wanted us to put in. So we may not even need the three, but and we may not even need a special meeting. But I think we do, because there may be, even if there's one or two that want to go through every little thing, then we'll have provided that opportunity. I thought when we had our bylaws special meeting to adopt the bylaws, it might be a half hour, and it was 4. So you just never know what to expect. But bylaws are a different critter. So the feedback session schedule is, when you look at the calendar, there are a whole bunch of them say if needed. So they're placeholders just in case. And I'm guessing we're not going to need 5 through 8. Or maybe we keep 8 to have as something right before we go into the vote. Tom, what we were asking was how you liked the way this was arranged. And you're kind of key on this, where kind of took what seemed logical to put together in the presentation. And it might be logical in terms of how the document's organized, but going forward into feedback session 2, as we go through the actual discussions of the policies and procedures today, asking people to kind of keep in mind what you think of putting these kind of similar things together. Like, it seems like we could have a feedback session that covers meetings, with everything involved with meetings in one session, with maybe 2 or 3 others. But the others, community engagement had a number of different areas. I don't know if we could I think grant applications are slightly different, so that it does need to be its own. There aren't too many where there are duplicates, though, or duplicate kinds of categories. It actually maps pretty well.
Yeah, with just a few exceptions, it does. Yeah. So yeah, I think that looks reasonable. Basically, do you want to try to do? Well, I don't think we need to be quite as. Let me get my microphone up there. You can hear me better, maybe. I don't think we need to be quite as structured as we were with the bylaws. That having this is what it was and this is what it's going to be. We just have a statement and then just do live edits on the presentation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or,
Yeah.
If we're all there, we can certainly approve it. Straw polls if
Well,
necessary. I don't know.
yeah, I don't think we can actually approve because we're putting it out as an information only meeting, but we can
Well, I
at
mean,
least make notes.
approve as a draft. As what I
Oh,
meant.
okay, sure.
In other words,
So,
we can change the draft at the meeting.
right.
It's still going to
And
be.
then we just reaffirm it
Yeah.
when we get into our next meeting. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like what we did with the bylaws. I think
Yeah. Except I think we have at least one step less because we're not comparing it to previous things.
right. So, could you, Tom, start sharing whatever revision you're on now? I believe it's 30.
I thought you want that rather than surveys and straw polls. I can do that. Either one.
Well,
Which do you want?
I wanted to go through, I guess, surveys and straw polls are no, you haven't put those in yet then. Yeah, let's go ahead and do surveys and straw polls.
Because that did not get done. I
That's
added.
fine. I know you're very busy with community plan right now. But do you want to do the editing on that, or do you want me to do the editing on that as you?
I can do the editing.
Okay, why don't you put it up then? And
why don't I? Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I also have the other one queued up, so if we want to go back to it, we can do that. And we can also look at the community plan if you like.
Yeah, thanks. We've got plenty of other things to do, but thank you for offering. It's also very interesting. Right?
Okay.
You're
So
doing a good
the
job.
first question is, do you want to look at the line outs, or do you want to just read it as if it was actual stuff? My preference is to go ahead and show it as if everything was agreed to. It's easier to read. But
I would
Anybody?
suggest that just because it's such a major rewrite. Yeah. What do you
Okay.
think, Michael?
That's fine. Yeah. This is one of those things where we could go on and on and on. I mean, really, but I'm looking for something that when people read it, they're not going to drop it and go on to something else because it's so loaded down and so on. But
Yeah. Could you make it a little bigger?
Yes, I
Tom?
can.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to talk about it, Michael?
well, the beginning part of it just simply talks about what the purpose is for surveys and how to approach it. I don't want to use the term scientifically, but in a manner where you can actually trust the results of the survey and use them to make decisions and so on and so forth. And there's also a lot in here about being careful about how we do it, so that first of all, the instrument itself is simple. It focuses on a single concept rather than multiple concepts that may or may not be convoluted or in contradistinction to each other. But whoever is taking the survey, it focuses their attention on a singular idea and that they can answer it. That in the development of the document or the instrument, that care is taken that bias is not introduced into it in as much as possible. And that's almost never the case, but nevertheless, we need to honor that value in developing it. So that we're not leading people to particular answers, and we're not asking them to give answers that are predetermined and so on. So we go through that sort of thing. Whatever we do in terms of surveys is probably going to come from a request from the county, or it may be an instrument that they send to us. I could imagine it'll be lots of possible things, but there may be like county laws and discussions that go on that they want some input on. And we have to remember that we are a county agency, so to speak, and that our task is simply to gather the information from our constituency, both affirmative and negative, or pro and con, and write that up and get it back to them. But to do so in a descriptive fashion rather than a prescriptive fashion.
Excuse me, Michael.
Yeah.
I would think that if the county was interested in doing a survey, they wouldn't administer it through us. They would just go ahead and do it.
I
I
do
th-
too. Yeah, I think you're right. But
So I think the
there may
only,
be something that they're asking us as an NCAC specifically. What do you folks think about this, or what's the
could
feeling
be,
in the
yeah.
community?
And I think what the big one is, of course, and Tom's probably ready to say it, is the community plan is going to need a survey most likely. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is going to apply very much to them. These are things that aren't going to happen very often,
Yeah.
that are really important, but need
Yeah.
procedures.
Okay. Before we go too much farther, I had a little bit of problem with ordering when I read it. And let me highlight this sentence here actually has to come after this sentence here.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh
So-
yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead and do that, Tom. That's
I'm going to
that's
propose that we just take this and
yeah.
eliminate the also and move it up here.
Yeah, that's good. In fact, that kind of occurred to me and then I forgot. So I think that's a good note.
Okay.
Right, yeah. Okay, beyond that, the executive board is responsible for the surveys, although they may distribute that responsibility to another group to handle it. Nevertheless, that's assigned to the executive board.
Yeah, that a group can't just go out and
No,
do their
they
own
can't.
survey,
No,
formal
no,
survey like that,
no,
without getting
no.
executive board approval.
That falls into polls a little bit more. I think other folks can get involved with polls as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. from the top, the development. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a space. I'm sorry. That's anal retention. Yeah, there you go. It's 2 spaces. Wow.
Oh,
I think it's worthy to note that the Oregon State University
Survey Research Center.
Survey Research Center is available to us, and that's a highly respectable organization, and they are very skilled in doing such things, and they do recognize limitations as we are attempting to identify them as well. So that's a really, really good source for us to work with if we find the need to do so.
I'll just note my dad started that.
Okay,
So
back off. There's a conflict of interest. Please
there
note
is a
that, and we'll
conflict of
turn you
interest
in.
there.
We just turn you in.
Yeah, yeah. Although he's dead, so I guess it's
Oh, okay. Yeah, God
I think
rest
it's a
his soul.
coincidence of interest rather than a conflict.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll scroll up. Yeah.
I gotta drink coffee first. Okay.
Well, I think that's a good point that Lori put down there. I think probably that the NCAA will not use the survey as a substitute for a motion. Just to keep them separate and all. Surveys are there for gathering information. They're not there for passing any rules or policies or whatever. And that's it. Any questions on surveys? The development of a survey, if it doesn't come from the county, will be done by a group that the executive board identifies or charges to create one. Might fall in our laps, actually, the bylaws committee. And I've often thought that the bylaws committee probably will have its name changed for designating more than just simply bylaws. Straw polls, straw votes, those kinds of things.
I'm going to just interrupt you for a moment.
Sure.
That's an interesting thought. I wonder if we should call it the governance committee.
Well, yeah, or yeah,
That's kind of implies more like executive board.
yeah,
but,
it is. Yeah.
Sorry, I digress. I'm bad.
Administrative services committee or something. Yeah, but who else would they send it to? One of the built into our structure and our charge is the understanding that we know something about this, and whereas others may not, and so it makes sense that it probably would come our way.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking off the top of my head. By the way.
So let's move on and
straw votes. Straw votes and straw polls are informal in the sense that it's something that we want to find out on an ad hoc basis. And the responses are confidential, and it's a very simple sort of thing that we may do online, and it is non-binding under any form at all. And the results is reported in its toto in the minutes, and that's really all there is. So they're separate.
I think I'm going to make that into a couple of sentences.
Sure. Good.
But I don't want to do it right now, but I think it needs to be a couple of sentences.
Yeah, okay. That's good.
Procedure 13 is that's following policy, correct? Okay. Yeah. All right. And that just how do we go about doing it? What are the questions that we need to ask ourselves? And those are all good questions, by the way. Who's responded? What information specifically is being sought? And again, that falls back to simplicity and as much as possible Unitarian.
I had a question about the word potential members. I was confused by who potential members would
Well,
be.
the potential members are people who are not formally signed up, but live in the community or fall into the categories of membership. They certainly have, I think, not only a right, but ought to be included in surveys. Simply because they didn't sign up and all of that does not eliminate or exclude them under any circumstances.
Is this meant to be inclusive or
Yes.
alternate?
No,
'Cause I
no,
think it needs
inclusive.
to be inclusive.
Yes.
So
Because,
we don't need,
when we're sending it out, there is an expectation that it will be sent out as broadly as possible.
okay, so we would
So
say,
it's two options. One is that we restrict a survey to members that we know of, and the other is that
that
we
was
just
my
send it
question.
out.
That was my
Yeah,
question.
yeah. And the
Oh, I
other
see. Yeah,
option,
okay.
and
All
the
right.
other option is that they could be sent out to the general community at large.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. If it's members only, it has to do with our organizational issues. Uh, but if it's more than that, if it's community issues, then it ought to include everybody.
That we
So,
can find. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
this is an
So
alternate.
maybe maybe instead of saying, just say Nesquin community at large, or I think that the neat thing about potential members is that it includes people who would be eligible for membership, which should include anybody in the Nesquin community that would care. But we don't probably have to be that formal about it.
Yeah, I
So
think
It's just
that's
when you
fine.
get into Nesquin community at large, then you get into what about membership? Does that include people who are property owners but non-residents? Or are people going to think, oh, they mean residents? So the wording before clarifies it includes
well,
everybody who would be potential
this
members.
is inclusive
Yes,
and a superset of this.
yes.
Well, not
So it's,
necessarily. Somebody could
yes, it
come in and,
is.
because somebody could come in and say, it depends on how you define community. But if
Same way
somebody
we
could
do in the
come in and
bylaws.
somebody could come in and say residents. We just want to pull residents, and it's an NCAC thing. It shouldn't just include residents, right? It could include people who are eligible for membership.
Well, maybe I can imagine a survey that involves only residents because it has something to do with residential rights and privileges and so on, rather than landlords or something of that. I mean, there is a potential of a differentiation between members at large and residents, or there may be. I don't know. I suppose you could go so far as to say there might be a survey of people who have business concerns in the community. I don't know. I would argue in favor of leaving that open so that the survey itself assists in determining who the respondents are.
In that case, I think we should just delete this section. Who are the respondents?
Well,
It's a
the key is,
consideration. It's a consideration. It's
yeah,
just not a requirement.
yeah. I think that's something that as you plan a survey, you need to think about who are you trying to reach,
Okay,
and
well,
who would you want? And in some cases, you might just want to reach the NCAC membership. For the community plan, I would think it would be anyone who is a potential member, right?
but you're also talking about other divisions. And to quote Wyatt, over specification tends to limit participation rather than enhance it.
Yeah, my concern is that this wording could limit.
That's why I'm saying, just a simple statement is the survey will determine, the creators of the survey will determine the audience. I don't think it needs to say anything more. The respondents.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Yeah,
But
I can go with
this says
that.
it either or. This is
Yeah,
what
it
tells me.
does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Tom.
Okay. So I'll put some words in there that
Or you can put in, instead of a question, you can put in respondents to be determined by,
Yeah, I think that's what he was
Survey.
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. You could throw in EG, for example. That's always a
I
catch.
know I don't do Latin.
Yeah,
I don't speak Latin, never wanted to.
yeah.
I
Nobody
mean,
does.
the way it's organized, it's got considerations. So
Yeah.
this would be considerations for the creators of the survey,
That's right.
Or do we want to
right?
say
So
determined
it's
by the
sort of
executive
duplicate.
board rather than the creators of the survey?
Well, I think the executive board has to approve all of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Um,
Yeah, no, it's creators, because that's part of putting it together.
Okay.
We do have a it is a discontinuity there. I'll see what I can do. Rather than questions, it could be statements.
mhm.
I'll do that editing because that bullet's
Yeah, I think
in-
you're right. There could be some fairly easy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great.
okay.
Will you have time, or do you want us to go back and do that?
I'm not going to have time for much time
Mhm.
before Monday.
Oh, but just Monday? I mean,
Yeah.
are you sure? Okay. Because I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. I think we could
Yeah.
do that pretty easily, but I've got a lot too. So,
Yeah.
okay. So just, do you want to highlight that in yellow or something and make a
Yeah,
note
good
that
idea.
just that whole paragraph there? I mean, it goes on and it goes on and it goes on.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
Okay.
because particularly how should questions be written?
Yeah.
And how should the survey be administered? It's quite
Yeah.
complex because they are complex.
Well, this turns out to be a tutorial on how to do it. I don't know that we want that, but maybe I don't, and
Could you put it in reference, part of it in reference?
Yeah, I think so.
yeah, I think
That's not a bad
that's-
idea. That's not a bad idea at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Ogadoga.
But I do think, even though it's a tutorial and you could go off and find various tutorials, it's something that could be fairly easy to use for a
Mhm.
group trying to formulate a survey.
Yeah, if it landed
Yeah.
in their lap, then,
Yep.
they shouldn't have to go online and doing all kinds of research to, to figure out what it is they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Okay. Same thing here.
And the nice thing about that is if it's in references, it can be easily modified. Go to the
Yeah.
membership if we want to change it to.
Okay. Well, do we want to look at this before I highlight it, or I didn't see any problems with it other than
No, there's no problems. Except the red there, but that's to be determined.
that's that's ad hoc. Depends on who's available.
That's
and
right.
knows how to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's another one down there that
Yeah.
I'm still struggling with on if a Zoom poll doesn't work. This has happened. What do we do? And, they have one option there, but gosh, if there are tons of people, we may not have those problems anymore. But gosh, last year and the year before, we tried, if the Zoom polling didn't work, it was just a mess trying to, when you have several screens of people on the Zoom call trying to figure out who's voting how without the Zoom poll.
Tomorrow, with the election with no secretary nominated, there will most likely be nominations from the floor and then creating a poll to vote.
And that's something that can be done if the person's trained. I mean, I may talk to Gary today about setting that up, but it's fairly easy to do to set that up. But you have to be logged in. He could have something set up for adding the name. It's just you're not doing it from the Zoom screen, you're doing it from the website. And
Yeah, okay.
okay.
I
Yeah.
shall remain creatively ignorant on that entire process.
Good.
So
Okay.
you think this would also be moved to references then, Tom?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
would you, I have one
'Cause
question.
it's
Would
not
you
as
keep
long.
the straw polls paragraph yet in the procedure, but then reference for the specific guidance?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah,
Because I think you did
that's a
it,
good, yeah,
I
that's a
think you
good
did
point.
it in the, above that with the
Yeah.
survey guidelines
Well,
or
and
the
I'm
survey
wondering,
definition.
You mean to undo that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Move,
fine.
not
There you
move
go.
that?
Mhm.
And
I
then do
wonder,
the word straw polls.
I'm wondering if we move those paragraphs up to the policy, and then we don't have to have a procedure. We just have the policy and the references.
Okay,
Okay. It might be later than Monday.
We're giving
Okay.
you lots of fun here, Tom.
Okay. So I'll take as a directive,
okay,
figure out a policy, because there shouldn't be any procedures without policies, I think.
okay.
Right.
Uh,
Well, we have a policy already. We've gone through it. It's up
Yeah.
at the top
Yeah.
of the page is the
Yeah.
policy part. What I'm suggesting is we
Yeah.
move the part that's under that first paragraph under procedure for each of these and just add it to the
Gotcha.
policy.
Okay. And then move it to references.
And then we don't have
for-
a policy. We just
Yeah.
have a policy. I mean, we don't have procedure. We just have a policy and references. That's not too
Yeah.
chopped up.
And probably will make it two different references because people will
Mhm.
more likely
Mhm.
do polls than
Yeah.
Yeah.
surveys. Okay.
Yeah, if they're tied together. They have a few similarities, but yeah, most of them are the surveys are a lot more.
Okay.
And the reason for this very detailed thing on the survey is that there have been complaints in previous years about surveys that were done badly
Mhm.
and a lot of animosity that arose out of that.
Yeah.
So that's one reason we're spending the time and space to put in this information to try to help people understand how to be fair and get accurate results, meaningful results without torquing people off.
No, it's such a great section. So needed.
I'm sorry, I was coughing at the time. What did you say, Susan?
Oh, I just said it. I mean, kudos to the crafting of this section,
Yes,
this
yes.
procedure. It's
Yeah.
so well written and well researched and much needed to keep us, in the rails, on the rails.
Yeah.
Or between the rails.
Yes.
Hey,
Hopefully not run
Exactly.
over by the
Yeah,
I know, right?
train on the rails. But
yeah. Would you pass on our thanks to Lori?
Mhm.
I will.
Okay,
And
good.
she was pleased to help.
Yeah,
And thank you, Michael, too, because you provided a lot too.
okay.
So I'll save my copy. And I'll make that an R4.
Okay.
And do you have it on the website or just
I
use-
do. I have it on the website under. I just have it for this meeting file. That's all I have. I don't think I don't really have a place to put these things other than send them to you to add to the document. So I just put
Okay.
it in the meeting folder.
I may put it in a meeting folder. I don't know. I don't like to have it reside only in one place on Earth.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Okey-doke.
Okay. So are we done with that?
Yep.
Any
So,
objections to having Tom edit as we discussed? And
Nope.
No.
that's
Nope.
fine.
okay, thank you. Moving on to Policy 17, information only meetings, and I think that's a really
Oh.
quick one.
It happened to that. I love when it does things for you. Didn't want that. Okay, 17.
Mhm. So I think it's the stuff down below. I think everybody thought that that was part of, oh, no. Oh, maybe we've already done it.
I
The
think we
version I
already
was
did that.
looking at so we didn't have a check mark here. That's why I had it listed.
Okay, so we will now.
And the version I was looking at, the version 29, had some yellow in it, but it looks like you got that taken care of.
Yeah, that was all corrected last time.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
I have a question about the first sentence of, sorry, of that second paragraph. An informational meeting is a special meeting, because the last bylaws meeting we had was a regular meeting, but it was information only because we didn't have quorum.
Okay, I'll give you my understanding of it. We really have three kinds of meetings. We have regular, special, and urgent. Special meeting may or may not conduct business. If it doesn't conduct business, it's information only.
Special
I'm
meeting-
wondering if we can say an informational meeting is a meeting in which information is provided rather than a special meeting. I guess that's.
It
Yeah,
is the
I
type.
think-
It is a type of special meeting.
Yeah, I think, Susan, you are pointing to an interesting point, and that is that special meetings are actually defined as a singular issue meeting. And that the rules for special meetings require that it not go beyond that. And when that is completed, that meeting is done. So using the term as a special meeting may be confusing for people who understand there's a definitional indication of a special meeting in Robert's rules.
That's exactly, yeah.
And in our bylaws.
And in our bylaws.
I have exactly the opposite opinion. It is a special meeting. And it's
Well,
a type
it's
of
special,
meeting.
yeah, that's true. But I'm being I'm playing semantics with the term special, because the word special is defined in Robert's Rules of Order.
But Robert's Rules is secondary to our bylaws, and our bylaws do have a reference to the special meeting.
So let me just throw out an example. An example was our regular bylaws committee meeting that became an information only meeting because we didn't have quorum. So it was not a special meeting, it was a regular meeting, but it was not a regular meeting because we didn't have quorum. So it became informational.
Actually,
That's exactly.
I think if we're gonna get technical about it, you didn't have a meeting.
Well, we had an
But we
information
did.
meeting,
We had
and
a
it was public,
gathering.
and it
met.
was recorded.
You
We had a
met.
gathering. I would simply just drop the term special and say an informational meeting is a meeting in which information is provided. That's all there is on that.
It's less correct, but it's still correct,
Yeah.
what you just said. I'm being pedantic, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. That's your task. You know,
I'm more comfortable with dropping special, given what happened to our regular bylaws meeting that I attended that became informational.
Well, you could do no business.
We did no business.
There was only two of you, so it was legit for you to talk. You didn't have a meeting.
Well, we had Sarah and we had Mark, and
Yeah.
so we did have a public meeting. We couldn't have met. Well, I guess we could have actually met with them separately.
We had
but
it properly noticed, but we didn't have quorum. So
well, we could rewrite the whole sentence. I mean, in something like
I'll give up.
informational meetings may be provided where input only is gathered and no motions or no formal business is conducted. Something like that.
We've already got all of that. I give up. We got specialist struck.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on policy
Susan,
17?
Susan.
Okay, we're gonna stop that.
No gloating.
Anything?
I'm good with it. Sorry.
Okay, so we can put a check mark on that. And then 19.
Want procedure 19? We don't have a 19.
No, it's new. So it's let me share that, but wait a minute. I guess it's just procedure that we had the removal. Let me just, why don't we defer policy 19 until we get to procedure uh 8. So we'll defer it.
We don't have a
It's a
policy 19.
suggested new policy.
Oh, so that's a new policy.
So when we went through that list, Michael wrote, he had an action item to write some for policy 8, and he sent it this morning. And when I looked at it, I thought this actually looks like a policy to me. And so I'm suggesting that when we look at procedure 8, that we introduce policy 19. So why don't we wait and look at procedure 8? We'll discuss it then. So right now, though, we are going to procedure 7.
That formal. Right. Go away. Let me fix this. Okay. And procedure, which did you say?
7. Procedure 7. Removal from office or position. Wyatt and I have submitted this. I think this is it's been out there a while. So
Okay.
we
so
get
let
to
me-
finally discuss it today.
For those who do not like paragraph marks,
Mhm.
should I make that not red? Would that be easier? I'm okay
Yeah.
with it, but
That would be nice. Thank you. So this is kind of 2 sections. The first section is the bylaws change that this requires. Thanks to Wyatt for noticing this. And really the bylaws, we just weren't quite thinking about this. You want to talk about it, Wyatt?
No, it's the same theory about electing public officers. When they're elected and that's the source of their authority, then you essentially require that the process by which they were elected and gave them that authority is what would remove them from office. I realize that this is not the same as impeachment at the federal level, but it seems like the fairer statement to and it may be to gain trust here with our membership, but it's their choice to elect this person. They should be the people who decide that that authority is revoked.
So it's a simple bylaws change that we're recommending, and the wording is down there in the red. It's fairly simple. We think we can just do that on May 31st with notice, of course. That look okay to everybody?
Yeah. Interesting.
okay. So in terms of this document,
We would not put it in there. I think we would have to have some kind of just a note to people that note bylaws change or something in the title. And this would be moved to a list of bylaws changes that you're going to create. I think we need a new document for that.
okay. So in terms of this document, I'd rather keep this around as long as we can, so that we don't
Okay.
lose track of it.
Great.
But I believe the background is probably not that's necessary for our discussion,
hmm
but I don't think we need to. It's been out there a while, so I think we don't need this.
Well, before you remove it, do you think you could create quickly a new document that's bylaws changes and keep that for that document, because I think we may need that when we present the bylaws change.
Can I do a new document? Let's see. Yep, I can.
Thank you. Shall you do the new document? May you do the new document?
I can do it, yes. And I may, or may not. Who knows? Let me just, okay. Just take all of that
Mm-hmm.
and put it in this new document that says something. Okay.
Bylaws changes. Bylaws amendment. 2025 bylaws amendment.
Okay. I will put it in the bylaws drafts document.
Thank you.
As soon as I do a save as, where's the save as? I have, oh, there it is.
When do you want to propose this as a bylaw change?
May 31st. We'll talk about it in the feedback sessions when we get to this, but we'll have, that'll be noticed properly, and we're
Yeah.
already mentioning it and as we talk about this in meetings, but
Okay.
that there will be some just
Advance notice.
yeah, we'll have some minor bylaws changes that have come
Okay.
forward as a result of the policies and
Yeah.
procedures.
Sounds good.
So I'm going to call it pending bylaws amendments.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
And so now we get into the actual procedure, which Wyatt wrote.
Okay, so we don't need this, actually.
Yeah. What?
That was just a repetition.
Oh, a duplicate title. Got it. Yeah. So you're on, Wyatt.
I'm trying to figure out where we're at here.
And now we're in the actual procedure now that we've dealt with the bylaw change.
Oh, it's it may look more complicated than it really is. The my sense of it is that the dependency of the motion that we're taking a removal for an officer who's elected and essentially putting it into or putting it to the people who elected them as to whether to remove them. And for the executive board on task force members who are appointed, that they could be removed by the executive board, so that there's no problem there. There's also a provision in here for suspension. And I added that, and it may not be necessary. I hope it's not. For an emergency situation in which you've got a rogue officer, you can't remove them, but you could suspend them based upon conduct, and that would shortcut essentially the process so that they can't do any further damage. It's a damage control issue.
Well, there's actually another reason that I read into it was that if someone were, for instance, incapacitated, you would want to suspend them so that they didn't count for quorum.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, Tom. That's great.
Yeah.
I've got a question about the second point, being encouraged to first contact the chair. What if it's the chair who's gone rogue that they want, that wants to be removed? Would they go to the county, to Sarah?
Yeah, they don't have to. They're encouraged, but
Okay.
That's exactly why that second bullet is in there, because if the executive board is reluctant or there is a rogue chair or some chairperson, then you can actually go directly to the membership. It's just there will be notice then for until the next regular or special membership meeting if the board doesn't seem to necessarily agree. So it's kind of an end around. Hopefully it would never be needed, but it would be a way that if there's a group that's just really, really upset with the way it's being run and the executive board doesn't agree, that they could actually go in and take some action.
And so what happens in the interim? between calling for suspension and discussion in the interim process before that a motion is or a vote is actually taken. Is that where the suspension clause comes in, Wyatt?
It can, doesn't have to.
Well, this says in an emergency,
Yeah.
which
So,
is
but
that's a
the executive board has to declare the emergency though, or the person has some kind of an issue themselves where there's an emergency. So if that's more related to item 1 above. You know, where you have to wait, if it's an elected member, you have to wait to the next membership meeting unless they really want to call a special board meeting. But even if it's a special board meeting, it would be a 2-week notice kind of a thing. But the executive board would have the authority to suspend somebody until the issue is resolved at the next membership meeting. It's kind of complicated, you know, when it first started, it looked like it was going to be fairly simple, but you've got these issues of who's elected, who's appointed, and then who gets to get this before the membership. You know, how do you get access before the membership if the executive board is the problem and they're not agreeing to bring it forward? So, and then Wyatt had this idea of the suspension too, that, you know, if there's something, you know, like in a normal organization where there's actually, say, a fairly fair amount of money, and you think the treasurer is having, you know, absconding with it, you might want an emergency situation to suspend them right away. But that's not true here. We just don't have any. We have great people, but there could be something where there's an emergency, or I think, like Tom said, if somebody has a health issue.
Yeah.
And not counting for quorum, that's a great example, Tom. I wonder if we should mention that in there about suspended people do not count in quorum, because we're not replacing them yet.
Yeah, okay, so we probably need to add something that softens this second sentence. If necessary.
well.
Okay,
It's
but
it's all
anyway,
an issue of
let's
due
add,
process. As long as
What's that, Michael? Can't hear you.
I'm just thinking it's all due process is what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, we could adopt a Elon Musk process and just do it.
let's not get violent and obscene at this time of day.
Bust them out.
Okay,
A member may need to be suspended. Incapacitated. Yeah, that's good.
Or unavailable, like somebody goes off. I don't know.
yes, it's more general.
I don't know, I think it might be a medical thing for 3 months or something, and they're gone. And,
Yeah.
but they're coming back. They don't want to give up their position. I love the quorum thing. The other people can do the tasks, but they're not going to be a physical person put in temporarily.
Yeah, after effect. I think it's effect.
That's correct. You got it right.
Requirement.
Right.
Yeah. That's good.
Right.
That's actually very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm
It
just
also
put
softens it.
if necessary. Come on, it's right there. Okay, there we go.
Instead of saying a member, which could imply any member in the NCAC, do you want to just say the individual like you did in the sentence before?
Yes, okay. We're crafting on the fly here.
Totally.
Okay. I
Okay.
like that. Yeah, I feel a lot better about that now.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, there are two clauses in that sentence, not necessarily a single clause. I'm wondering if it might be helpful to take that second clause about quorum and just simply make it a sentence that says that individual shall not count in a quorum.
No, that's a good point, Michael.
Yes,
Although
except
it
that does,
explain why they would be suspended temporarily.
Yeah.
uh,
So
if
because
somebody
the way it's
needed to,
written now says that the purpose for their suspension is that they won't affect a quorum, and that's not really the intent there.
Well,
Um,
it may be though,
well,
actually.
it could be, but it's
There are
not
two.
necessarily tied. Yeah,
The original one is because there's a problem with the person.
right.
And the second one, I mean, a really egregious problem to be,
Mhm.
hopefully we'll never have to use this.
Mm.
The second sentence is if they're unavailable temporarily, but long enough to affect things that their absence does not affect the quorum requirements. So,
I think those two, that needs to be tied and not made general to the person who's being removable for cause.
yeah. But I think Michael's point of even if they're removed for cause, it doesn't affect the quorum. But that would probably be true for a vacancy too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, people? You want
Yeah.
to kind of cogitate on suspension? Why don't you highlight that one?
I'm,
Well,
I'm okay the way it's written. If people are not okay, then we need to talk about it some more.
okay. What do people think?
Well,
Why?
you heard my point. Um, and my point is only that regardless of the reason and so on and so forth, that person's absence does not count in the quorum, or that person does not count in the quorum.
Mhm.
I think we need to check the bylaws too to make sure that that is not in conflict with them. Because it seems to me that the bylaws set the standards for a quorum. And we may have to submit this exception as part of our bylaws change.
I will check that. I'm actually have them right up here. Let me look.
So if someone
Um,
is suspended,
lied.
they actually don't count for quorum.
That's correct.
I guess that's logical.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I
we
think.
still need to
Go ahead.
check on the bylaws and make
Yeah,
sure.
I'll check while we're talking. We actually have a section on under meetings, and it just says it doesn't go into vacancies on quorum. Let me send her vacancies. Yeah, we don't talk about it. So I think it's really under Robert's rules is probably more. So I don't see anything that's a problem with it. I think we're fine on putting stuff in here. We don't talk about quorum regarding people who are vacant in terms of a long-term thing. Now, maybe we need to add it, but if we have a vacancy that affects the quorum, maybe that is something, and that would be under section E, vacancies. Or under section D, removal from office. We have any executive board member may be removed from office with or without cause by a third, blah, 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 give that. And it's also under executive board, and it's under subcommittee members also. Okay. Yeah, why don't we make a note under bylaws.
I'm not happy with that sentence, but I don't know how to change it right this moment.
Yeah, why don't you just highlight it in yellow and we'll go back to it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add that to the potential bylaw list.
Okay, this probably moves to procedures. This is a policy, is it? I don't know.
It's a procedure. We don't have a policy for it at all. I'm not sure why, but that's where it got stuck.
Hmm.
Procedure 7. Okay. Made a
If
note of
you
that.
want, that should be ahead of that. If you want it to go first, you should write it first.
Well, it's saying action, but a lot of this is, well, no, I guess not. You're right. All this is, yeah. Yeah, as we were talking about this at our non-meeting meeting, we it kind of occurred to us that we really need number 1 on here and added that in. It's sort of implied, but we didn't actually have it stated. Let's try to get this resolved without anything formal. Maybe the person will resign or correct themselves. Okay. You want to go through these, Wyatt, or can people read? And
I
anyone
think
have any
people can
comments?
read. I think there's 2 prongs to due process, one of which is notice, and the other one of which is opportunity to be heard. And this fleshes out the second prong.
Okay.
Okay,
Hopefully this will never be needed.
is this an ordered list or are these bullets? I
It's
think it's an
ordered.
ordered list.
It is.
Okay. So I know it's legal to do the semicolons, but it's not a legal document.
Well, thank you, Wyatt. This is
Yes.
great. So other than this yellow, how does this sound to people? Can we say substantially complete? Just review the yellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll bring that back to
Put a
on the
period after
18th.
put a period after number 2 there.
In the yellow thing, I noticed it says the suspended individual affects the quorum requirement. Do we want to say does not affect? I mean, while it's under
Is
consideration.
not counted. Is not counted.
That's
It's
why
but the way it says right now, it says it does affect it.
it does affect quorum requirements, but
Oh.
that's why I'm
Yeah.
not happy with that sentence.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom.
Is not counted in quorum requirements is better.
There's a good way to say that, which my brain won't produce at this particular moment.
I think, why
No,
don't you
we-
just type if is not counted in the quorum requirements for now, so that we at least correct that one major issue. And then we can reword it later. Okay.
In. Yep, there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Good catch, Susan. And thank you, Tom. I know it's not fun to do that on the fly while you're. Okay, let's move on to procedure 8, organization of subcommittees and task forces. And I think
Substantially, I could spell that differently. Maybe I spell it traditionally. What the heck? All right. Now,
thank you.
what?
Whoops.
All right. sloppy. So we're going for what, 8?
Can
Eight.
we go, can we do one more thing? Can we go back to suspended individuals?
Yeah.
I'm looking at wording. I would say suspended individuals, drop the colon, plural. Suspended individuals are not counted. Drop the absence.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And drop the absence, change is to are not.
Yeah, that's good, Michael.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. In that case, I
There
would.
you go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Mm.
Shall we
Thank
just
you.
go ahead
Simple.
and say, good, we're done?
Foreign requirements is fine.
Yeah, that looks great.
Thank
Clean
you.
and, yeah.
We get it.
What
Yeah.
he said. Yeah.
Good work,
Yeah.
Michael.
So we can put a check mark there. Any
Yeah,
objections to
boom.
approving that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, wrong one.
7, I
I
think.
know, but I'm copying.
Oh, but we have
the
that.
character.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That is good. Thank you.
I don't have.
Oh, you're copying. Got it. Okay.
I don't
Sorry.
have that on my keyboard.
Okay. It's not a button. It's not a key. All right. So moving on to procedure 8. I think this is going to be fairly quick. Sorry. Yes, 8. I think we're done, except we had a thing from Michael, which I'm going to share now. Or Tom, if you'd like to share it, it's in the packet.
It's in what? Where?
So basically, all of this has been approved, but we had a action item there in the first paragraph.
Oh,
Michael,
yes.
intro remarks.
Yeah.
Michael sent that this morning, and when I read it, I thought it looked like a policy. And so I'm suggesting we create a policy 19 with it. And so either
Okay.
you or I can share that, Tom. What would you like to do?
I don't remember seeing it this morning.
No,
Yeah.
it came in right before the meeting. So it's in the meeting folder. So either I can,
No,
it's very short and,
I don't have it, so you'll have to do it.
okay. So if you can stop sharing, I'll share.
I don't know
Here,
where
I
that
can
came
actually
from.
replace current share. So I'm just going to knock you out. And I'm going to go to the meeting folder, I think. Oh, is that? Oops, that's not. Damn. Too many things to share. Oh, no, it was right. Okay, I'm just have to get out of this document. Okay. I renamed it, Michael.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So Michael had it under parliamentarian stuff, but really I
Yeah,
see it
that's
as
fine. Yeah.
as really fitting in with 8. And do you want to read it, Michael?
Yeah. I was thinking about how I would do such a task and thought I would just make notes, and then I forwarded it to Nancy. The parliamentarian or other person designated by the executive board shall convene each subcommittee and task force at the beginning of their session, and shall. And session is a special word in Robert's rules, and our sessions last for a year. And so that's how that word is there. That's open for discussion anyway. Number 1, introduce the members to the NCAA bylaws and the policies and procedure or special rules documents. Number 2, provide an overview of Robert's Rules and Order, and that's a very simple thing on how to do things. Number 3, lead in the election of a chairperson for each group. Number 4, assist in identifying a secretary or scribe for the purpose of reporting and distributing meetings of the respective minutes, that is. Number 5, entertain a discussion of the formal conduct of meetings. A lot of people don't know what that means. How do we do this? And, the development of agenda, the, calling of people and so on. And number 6, offer availability for the procedural advice to the group may want during their terms of office. What I did not include in there, and I should include in there in number one would be our relationship with the county and limitations on the Oregon Oregon open meeting laws. And we can just add that on the last part of number one, including Oregon meeting, or what is that? Oregon meeting law.
Oregon
The
Public
public
Meeting
meeting.
Law.
Public meeting laws, OPLM, OPML. And because that should be discussed also, and so people know how to do that.
So the other thing that it would do is already described in procedure 8, which is helping people elect a chair.
Yeah.
For the committee. So that's detailed in procedure 8. And really procedure 8 is more about that. How do you select a chair? And then this goes through the training. That's why I thought it was more of a policy kind of a thing.
Okay, yeah,
So there could be something added that they'll also supervise the election of a chair as described in procedure 8.
Yeah, my thinking is that, really this, for an organization our size and complex, this would really help people get off the ground and also to standardize behavior across all of committees, subcommittees, and task forces.
What do y'all think? You want to just take time to kind of look at it and bring it back on Friday next week, or do you want to? How does it sound to you guys?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, the only thing I had at this point that looks a little bit hinky is the word session in the first paragraph.
Well, how about term of office? How's that?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Or beginning of the year? I mean,
the beginning of the fiscal year, because like officers are elected for 2 years and they're staggered, but the whole executive board really should have this training every time.
yeah.
So what are I'm also editing.
Okay, a task force at the first meeting of the fiscal year.
Okay.
The only concern I have about that is some task force might be started partway through a fiscal year. I'm thinking of my outreach task force where was a task force of one, and or something may come up, executive board may need to name a task force midway through a year.
Well, how about just simply at their initial meeting then?
Yeah.
At the beginning of their position?
Sure.
Or term?
Term or
actually.
position. Yeah.
Term is actually better. At the beginning
Because
of
a
the
term could actually even be, if it's an ad hoc kind of a group, it could still
Right.
be at the beginning of that ad hoc
Okay.
term. Or if you start in the middle of a term, Susan, it could be their term.
Well, what I was doing was actually making a list of the things that I would talk about, and if
So-
you codify that, then when I hand off this authority, then the next person will pick it up, and there'll be some continuity and expectations.
And so I have in there as a possibility for policy 18, which we also don't have, training of the executive board. And this kind of almost fits in there. So maybe we don't approve this now, but we and this kind of went beyond. We have to go back and look at policy 8, but
we can
it
always
sort of
consolidate,
encompasses
but
training.
I'd like to capture it though.
Could it be
Yeah,
under
definitely.
the duty of a parliamentarian section or responsibility?
It might be the parliamentarian, it could be somebody else. I think it's almost separate though.
Oh, I
It's
see.
because
Yeah.
the parliamentarian has certain duties, but we want to make sure that they can come in and do this, right? That there is a
True.
policy that people will be trained.
Yeah.
And so policy 8 was around selection of a chair. This goes beyond, that goes into training that will be good for everybody. So I think we need to bullet a little bit. And I agree with you, Tom. I certainly want to save it, but I kind of think we go back and Michael, why don't you and I talk more about it and
Okay.
we can bring it back on the 18th on how we do this. If it would be policy 18 with training combined with this, but then we've got the election of the chair. So let's kind of put our 2 cents in, because I really like what you did. I think how it's organized, or Tom, if you have some thoughts, or anybody else, if you have some thoughts.
Yeah.
So I take it you're downloading this
I
edited
downloaded it
version.
and I'm trying to figure out why everything is underlined. Okay, fine. And I did
And you've done
consider
the
this to,
purple, right? That's your purple highlight?
that's yours. We're
No, I'm
looking at
not.
your stuff, not mine.
Yeah, but you're editing online. We can both edit, and your edits are showing.
Oh,
This is the Google Docs version. You're
I
editing on
could
it.
edit there, huh? Okay, well, I
Yeah,
should.
as it turns out, I was kind of going, oh, he can do this. So it's your purple. You're in control, even though I posted it. So,
I can show you my version.
did you added in lead in the election of a chairperson for
Someone
each
else is
group,
sharing.
or Michael, did you already have that in there? Maybe you already had that in there.
Yes, lead in the election of a chairperson for each group. Yeah.
Okay, you already did that.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe it's just highlighted.
Okay, I can't actually update someone
You
else's
can't.
sharing. No,
Okay,
it won't let
allow.
me.
There, I
I
just
can show you
allowed
what
you.
I have it in the document if you want to look at it there.
Yeah, let me stop share. And it turns out there was something where you requested. I just got a box right beforehand saying that I can allow you. So we'll know that for the future. Whoever shares can allow others to share. Okay, great. So don't you think that belongs as a policy as opposed to just being in a procedure?
No, I
think
think it's a procedure.
Because it gives steps.
Okay, I did steps. Okay. We should have a reference to this somewhere though.
Mhm.
Yeah, to me, the policy is that it'll happen.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I still go back and forth on. I'm so used to standing rules kinds of things where you don't differentiate between a policy and a procedure, but I'm learning.
Well, it's meant to be simplifying, and also the fact that it's not as complex as I feared it might be, but still somewhat complex.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So are we good with that for now? And we'll come back to it on the 18th.
Yeah.
The last one on our list for today is for this stuff is setting meeting times and mode. And I think it's done. I just wanted to check, which is procedure 15.
It's on the screen.
So I think it's done. It just didn't have a check mark.
In
I
case, I'll
wasn't
go
sure.
I think it is done. I'll get one just in case. Now,
Yeah, well, Andy.
Let's look at it. Yeah.
okay.
Should it say the meeting day rather than the meeting date?
It's the meeting times because the bylaws specify the date for
Or
the
does it
regular
specify?
membership meetings, but it does not specify the time. So that's what that first paragraph says. The time is to be specified in the policies and procedures where it's more changeable. And how. So that they can be they have to be at least via Zoom, which is in the bylaws, but they need to say, whether they're going to be hybrid or not. And the notice.
If Zoom goes out of business, I suppose we can change that, but
That's just it. I think that's why it's in the policies and procedures as via Zoom. And then we change it if we don't use Zoom anymore. It's not in the
okay.
bylaws as Zoom. It's in the bylaws as a meeting application, but we're specifying Zoom for now.
Okay.
Good.
I don't see any problem myself.
Put the check up there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do we need a space?
You know, the second sentence of the first paragraph there,
Mhm.
it seems to me that you're saying, well, we're going to set it in this procedure instead of just setting it. So should it be meeting times shall commence at 10 a.m.?
Sure. In the first, yes, that's good. Excellent. Well, I think what it's doing is it's following on from the first sentence that says the bylaws are specifying the date. But I guess we don't really even need to have that, right?
No, we don't need that sentence, actually.
Yeah,
I
good
was going to
catch,
object to
Wyatt.
it. We
Okay.
could just get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall start.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a very brief meeting.
How about
Mhm.
begin? How about begin?
And you could take out time, actually. You're setting the time. You don't need to
Yeah,
say.
meetings shall begin at 10 a.m. Excellent, Wyatt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meetings.
Meetings.
Do we need two sentences? Can we just say meetings shall begin at 10 a.m. and shall be conducted via Zoom?
Yeah, that's great. Simplify.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we need to save those letters because there's a shortage.
I'm glad we could still laugh after 2 hours here. Okay, so that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. We have a check mark.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for today's policies and procedures stuff. I'll send out an updated list for next week. Can we now talk about the feedback session? So we can either talk about specifically what we're going to discuss right now in the feedback session, or I can come up with a draft and send it out to you guys and you can let me know what you think. But in terms of what we have complete, can you stop sharing at this point, Tom?
Yeah. So did we decide yes or no on leaving it choice, or are we going to have to select ones that we're going to review?
Well, I kind of think we need to notice what we're going to cover so that people know if it's stuff that they're interested in. That's my only concern about just asking people what they want. We can ask tomorrow if there are any particular areas that people want to discuss, and then we could wait to send out, make a decision until after that meeting. But I don't think people are going to know yet enough about the document to say
Okay.
what they care about yet. Would be my only concern. Ultimately, I think we need to get through all of it, and we've got a lot that's complete. I'm thinking hopefully we wouldn't have to need 2 hours in each feedback session, but what do you think? Would it be better to have fewer sessions and have longer ones than more and short? I mean, we got through the whole document briefly in an hour and 20 minutes, including all the stuff up in front, and we're getting no comment. So maybe we won't get a lot of comment on any of it, but I guess what we could do, Tom, is say that it's going to be pretty flexible on what areas are covered, depending on how much time any particular area gets in terms of comment, I guess. But on the other hand, if we say these are the policies we're covering by topic, and we get through them quickly, we could just say we're done early.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I don't know. Personally, I'd rather have fewer meetings than more.
Yes,
Uh,
that would be nice.
I find it difficult to believe that anybody's going to be horribly upset about any of this.
Yeah,
And,
you're right. I'm
Yeah.
still thinking
gotta
about
put-
last year. So,
um,
and really even last year, it dwindled, right? As
yeah,
we
Yeah.
got into the later feedback sessions. It was really after we were done with Article 3, we kind of, it was fairly smooth sailing. So
This gets into more detail than most people want to deal with. So
yeah,
I think the bylaws were about as far as most people go.
yeah, maybe you're right. I
yeah.
I certainly from last Wednesday, we didn't get a lot.
Yeah.
These, the bylaws are nuts and bolts. These are washers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's,
Good way to put it.
I gotta write that one down. That's a good one.
Will it appear in the minutes, Michael?
Yes.
Probably will.
I think it should.
Well, what do you guys want to do? Do you want to keep it just kind of loose and we
I'd
ask
like to-
people
I'd
who
like to
come
see-
to the meeting
Yeah,
what
I'd like
topics
to see
they have?
I'd like to see what happens next time. If we've got 2 or 3 people again, and by the way, if they're the same people, I think that's plenty. Go through it in its totality as best we can. I don't think we need any more details. There's plenty of notice, and if people want to come, that's great. But this is not as critical as the bylaws.
Well, the other thing is they can be changed at
Yeah,
another meeting,
that's right.
but
People can go and review them, the recordings.
I sure can. Yeah.
right. And at the same time, we were really rushing through some of these and we weren't going through any real detail on any of them, but
I think
I'm
we
kind of
went through as
coming
much detail as they could stand.
I'm kind of coming around, Tom, to what you're suggesting here that
Okay.
um like removal from office has a lot of good detail, but on the other hand, it's going to be hopefully so rare. Hopefully no one's going to care.
Yeah.
And really it's the executive board that's going to care about most of these. So they have their own meeting on the 26th.
The most difficult thing for me on the feedback section was the scrolling up and down and back. I found that I had to have my iPad set up separately so that maybe it's because as members, subcommittee members, we were presenting something, but it was helpful to have it on the side for me. And I don't know how the experience was for others.
It
Yeah,
was somewhat difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, it was difficult for me.
Yeah.
I was doing the
So,
scrolling and it's like those
Yeah.
jumps would really be helpful, but
so
we're
we
just not
could,
in a position to do those yet.
we could, I mean, almost all of the policies can fit on a single slide and most of the procedures as well.
Well,
So we could,
that's
I guess, could just slidify it. That's a
that's
term,
what I was
technical
actually
term.
thinking, Tom, that's why I was originally thinking, and I forgot to say that, but I was doing PowerPoints for the subsequent ones, like we did the bylaws.
Yeah.
Instead of having, the changes, we'd be showing what they are, but we would have a slide for the policy and then the related procedure would be right after it. We wouldn't be going through the whole document like we did Wednesday, but then you have to figure out ahead of time what you're going to cover unless you end up doing the whole thing and then we're going to miss things. So if we actually picked some, it would be easier for me to actually do the PowerPoint for Wednesday night if we've already picked out what we're going to do.
I also think that at this point, I think maybe a cursory covering of the issues rather than detailed discussion of each. And if questions arise, fine, we can go into it then. But I think the idea at this point is not so much, from what I heard yesterday, not so much detail from the membership on what they think and feel about each one, but that they understand that these are the issues that are covered, and this is where they can go to read them, and so on and so forth. And I think
and they can email us if they have
right.
any
And I think
questions.
that's adequate.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I know I won't have time to do the whole thing in a PowerPoint
No.
by Wednesday, but I could do selected ones.
I
And
mean,
then
look, for example, let's talk about surveys, for example. We have discussed in detail how surveys are to be used and what their purpose is and how to structure them, and their value is to maintain blah, 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 blah.
and here you can go see
And you
more
can go see
information.
what those details are.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good point. That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Okay.
Maybe that is all that people care about. We
Yeah,
have
it is. I think it
procedures.
is. Yeah, yeah.
We have procedures on removal from office. You can go
Yes.
here to see what they are specifically. Let us know if you have any questions. If you want to, we can discuss them in detail at a future feedback session. The outreach task force, all that. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we just, people don't
Well,
care and
I can't do anything before Monday. But after Monday, I might be able, I think I can put that together pretty quickly.
well,
Just
I
a
think
summary.
I'd rather you work on an update to the policies procedures document if you wouldn't
Well, as
mind.
far as right now, our 30 is done. I mean, I'm going to publish it right after the meeting.
Mhm.
Right, but I mean, in terms of, are you thinking about doing some reorganization of it
I
at
already did.
all?
I
Oh,
did as much as I knew to do at the time. It may need it again, but it's
okay.
far, you want to go over that? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Why don't you show us R30? Maybe
uh,
you've been showing us R30, but
you have been witnessing R30.
okay.
Okay, so I will share again. We just thought we were done. Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you guys don't mind, I really like what Michael has suggested here. I'll come since you're tied up this weekend, Tom, why don't I do a quick thing of some example slides to send out to the committee for the presentation? Because I get you, Michael. I think that's exactly right what you're suggesting here. And you guys can comment on that. And then if you like it, we can expand it. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
For Wednesday night? And actually, some of that I could even show at tomorrow morning's meeting. We give them an example of a couple of things rather than showing them the table of contents. I don't know that the table of contents would mean much to them.
No, it's like,
Mhm,
it's a lot of information that for
mhm.
them to take in. I think reading a list.
And we show them that first page that shows what the differences are between policies, what they do in terms of supplementing the bylaws. And then we can go through policy one. Why would you be able to do that tomorrow? Go through
Not sure
policy
about
one?
that, Nancy. I got a grandson that just came in,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'm not sure what his schedule is yet, so don't count on me for that.
Okay. But if not, at
I
least
can
come
do
for the
it.
election so we have quorum. Yeah, you can do it, Tom. You could do that and the organization of it. So yeah, if anyone can come, at least just for the vote, I think it's toward the beginning. I just want to make sure we have quorum. I'm a little worried.
I'll put together the slides that I'll use and send them to you.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And so this is the order they are now.
I think it's the
Pretty much I've got
same. Standards and values access. Oh, okay. Minutes. Can we just say minutes? Well, I guess not, because we're not including task forces, but it's applied. Can we just say minutes on policy
Sure,
3?
sure.
on policy.
3.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Conflicts of interest, surveys and straw polls, urgent meetings. Can we just say urgent meetings and not definition of policy 6?
Policy
Oh,
6.
no, it was policy 6. Where is it now? Yeah,
Urgent
still
meetings, so,
policy 6, just urgent meetings. And then we have community engagement, public statements and positions, outreach. Okay, we're going to change that to outreach task force. We agreed.
Yes.
Policy 9. And Susan and I will update that. Mainly Susan. We'll come back on the 18th with, yeah, thank you, with the nomination stuff. And a reference on how to apply. Okay, so policy 10, can we just say honors to take out definition of? And 11. Privacy, we already changed that. Parliamentarian. And the reason the parliamentarian isn't just in job descriptions is really to say that policy 12 is to say that people have access to volunteer. It's more for the other people, so it's good. Grant applications and fundraising, monitoring task force. So in terms of reordering, I was thinking if we could put things like the outreach task force with the monitoring task force with the bylaws subcommittee
okay.
in the same general location,
Mhm.
to me that makes more sense than having them spread out. But that takes time and effort, and word gets miserable with those kinds of things. So I don't think it needs to be done now.
Well, okay,
It's
I think I
something
can
kind
do it
of
over
toward
here.
the end.
So you want outreach task force next to monitoring task force, or in
Yeah,
front of it?
and yeah,
And
and bylaws. Somewhere we have bylaws subcommittee, don't we? Oh, I guess we just have changing the bylaws.
yeah,
We don't really, and maybe have organization of subcommittees and task forces. That's a procedure. Never mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
wasn't that bad?
Yeah, and then the meeting one. Let me go back to.
Let me just let's see. I can't make that bigger. Maybe I can make this bigger. You just work from this thing because we can rearrange it.
Yeah. So if we go to that document that I had for the feedback session last time, we have things that kind of went together under meetings. Policies 3, 6, and 17 are related.
Policies
3,
3
6.
and 17. Where do you want them?
I don't care. I just want them together. So minutes, urgent meetings, information only meetings, which is another one, and notices. Actually, there are several. I didn't get all the, oh no, some of these are procedures. So sorry.
Okay.
Policy 3, policy 6, and policy 17 together somewhere. They're all
Hmm.
meeting related.
Okay, is this order? Can you see this order here?
Let's see.
Way off to the right, left-hand side.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's good. And when you move it over there, does that actually relocate them within the body of the document?
Yep.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it
That
does
is
have
really cool. A good thing about Word.
yeah, okay, so we
Wow.
needed to continue. That doesn't say that it didn't mess up. Continue numbering. Okay, there we go. And it's messed up the formatting. I'll fix that.
Okay. Well, thank you. So maybe I'll just send you something you and I can work on. Well, no, you want to send it out right now, and then you can work on your other stuff. So under under procedures for minutes. Where did it go?
These are all how,
Procedures.
these are all about
Procedure.
meetings.
Yes, procedures 3, 5, 12, and 15 go together.
Okay, let's move those up. And 15, did you say?
Yeah, 3, 5, 12, and 15. Mhm.
When
And then
you
I
do
think I'm
those,
done.
Todd, does it automatically renumber them?
Yeah, well, you have to go in and tell it to
redo it.
continue numbering. Come on.
I hope you saved all that before you started.
I did.
Okay. I had no idea. I know you can redo the table of contents when you move things around, but I didn't know you could actually move things around from moving the table of contents around. That's really incredible.
Okay, I'm gonna make, let's see. I may have to, and procedure. Oh, Word just went wonky.
Uh,
So while Tom is doing that, so action items, we are going to come up between Tom and I, we will come up with a presentation for tomorrow's meeting and uh, I will come up with a poll, set of poll questions to find out how many, what people want in terms of feedback sessions after we go through the presentation, telling them what we're dealing with. And maybe we won't have to have that many. That would actually be really great if we can cut back some meetings. And then I will draft presentation for feedback session number 2, sorry, feedback session number 2 for Wednesday night. I will draft some slides, see what you guys think, and we'll go from there. Does that sound all right? You can just respond back to me via email for that.
Yeah.
And then for the meeting on the 18th, we have just a few minor follow-ups from the ones we went through today, but we have the training in 19, which would really be coming back. We have voting, which I'm writing. We have I have monitoring task force discussed on 418, but I don't know why. I've forgotten. And then the executive board emails will be on the 18th. In voting. So I don't think I have that much more. And then the job descriptions I hope to have present to you on the 18th or the 26th. So I don't think we actually have horribly much to do. So I think that's it. So Tom, thank you for working on all this, and I hope it didn't destroy your document here.
I hope so too. But I've sent you the table of contents text, and if you
Okay.
want any more changes in the next 2.5 minutes,
You
no,
emailed them to me?
I emailed you, and actually you have, I'm going to have lunch, so
I have a little
you
more than two and a
you
half minutes.
you got about 2 hours there,
Okay.
one thing
Thank
and
you.
another.
Thank you. I will look at that. Thank you very much. And everybody, thank you. Let me go back to Zoom here. Do you want to stop sharing, Tom, and we can
I'm trying. There
look
we
at one
go.
another? Thank you. Thank you for hanging in. Thank you for being willing to do a special meeting. I guess it's a regular meeting because, well, who knows what the heck it is, but at least it was
I
properly
don't
noticed.
care. We established that a little while ago. I don't care. Okay.
And thank you for hanging in, staying in good spirits and everything. You guys are marvelous. I hope everybody's planning to stay on next year. reapply for the June.
Oh, next
June
year ought to be a
election.
piece of cake, huh?
Well, it should.
Yeah.
It
should.
shall.
Don't
It
that.
shall be a piece of
That's-
cake.
Shall be.
Yes, should means it advised to.
Yeah, yeah.
It is advised to.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you guys very much. And
Okay.
I think that's enough for now. And we have no public to comment. So I will see you hopefully.
See you
How many of you
tomorrow.
are coming tomorrow?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm coming.
I'll be there.
Maybe,
I will.
Okay,
I will.
maybe.
maybe.
Okay.
All
And
right.
I think the election's first thing. So we need
Good.
to get hopefully a quorum. Okay. Thank you guys very much and see you, some of you tomorrow, some of you Wednesday night.
Okay.
Everybody's coming Wednesday night though, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks very much. Meeting adjourned at 1:29.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
fair
I'm
enough.
gonna stop recording here if I can find where to, there it is.